Who can say if your love grows as your heart?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to our first roundup of the season.
All right.
I'm here with Squill and Arco. We're gonna go ahead and get this started.
Nice panel here today. Happy Memorial Day to everybody. My condolences to anybody that for whatever reason is not off work or school or other obligations at this time for whatever reason. But we do have a nice panel. Me, Baker, Arco. We're also joined by a surprise interviewee who will be revealed at the end of the roundup. We'll do a little interview for. So, Arco, go ahead and introduce yourself. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm Arco. I'm a player on Primal, and I'm also a reporter for RLPC.
Yeah, he's out there grinding out the what's it called? The write-ups with Squill. Him and Squill are both doing write-ups on the games. They're very well written. You guys should check them out. They are long, but they are worth the read. It kind of hypes you up on the game you just played.
Yeah, hopefully if we can get them out in time in my sake. Which, by the way, apologies to anybody that I think I have like 6 reviews that are left.
Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and hop into the recap of the majors last week. So I'm going to let Squill take this one over. Let him talk it over. Squill.
Hello.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, thank goodness. I don't know why I just disconnected you there. So there was Arco there for you. Baker, I mean, everybody knows you, but still introduce yourself for you.
Yeah, I'm Baker. I play for Gravity. I'm the GM over at Gravity. I've been playing for 3 seasons now. Started on Newton's Law, worked my way to GM on Gravity.
Cool. And then I'm Squeal, and so far I'm doing nothing, but I did play last season. Hopefully I'll get back into it next season. So, yeah. This, I think if we're talking about a review of last week. We have a variety of games up here that had some various also unexpected results happening. First thing coming out here is Comet over Insurgency. I think a lot of people did expect Comet to take the win or have a tough time for Insurgency, but I don't think anybody really expected 2-0. Y'all got anything to say about that one?
Yeah, I expected it to be a lot closer of a match, and Alpha has been playing really well recently. They've taken out pretty much every team they've faced in dominating fashion, and so yeah, they've been looking really good recently, and I kind of expect them to keep up with it.
Yeah, Insurgency is a great team. I honestly, like you said, I did not expect a 2-0 over Comet. Comet is also a really great team. Maybe Insurgency had something off that series or something, but you'll never know.
And that seemed to continue as on the very same day. They also lost 2-0 to Gravity, another team from the Rocket Division that's kind of forming this scary group of 4 with Alpha, Aerial Aces, Comet. I have to kind of having to work through right now, but it seems like they took another loss there. On that?
I do have to say though, Gravity did get the win over Insurgency first, just based on scheduling. So maybe the loss from Gravity, the 3rd team in the Rocket Division beating them that bad, kind of threw them off coming into Comet's game.
Definitely. Now for the biggest one, personally, in my opinion, a team that has just absolutely been absentee for the majority of the season. Valiant has actually taken a series over Vitality 2-1. I mean, it seems like they've got their roster together recently, and people have actually been able to play, because for the greater part of the season, it's just been forfeit after forfeit after forfeit. This is big. What do y'all think about that one?
I mean, yeah, this is a huge upset. Valiant is 3-12. I mean, obviously they had some scheduling issues, but Vitality is 14-2. They're one of the top teams they're probably 2nd place in the whole major league. So it's kind of surprising to see Valiant take a series over them.
An interesting thought to bring into this, though, is due to the Valiant scheduling issues, did they receive any new players between then and now, that could have maybe pushed them to the next level to take a win on Vitality?
Point right there. I know that they've been through a variety of changes. I think ever since last season, they lost Rybread, and Rybread got replaced with Horrid Hippo, I believe, who took over actually just GMing. He was going to be, straight out of the draft, but he just GM'd for Valiant. And I guess they had some sort of scheduling issue where they just couldn't figure out how to play games together. Maybe the fault's with Horrid Hippo, maybe it's with his teammates, but either way, they just couldn't actually play together. And despite having a player like Maud, who is Grand Champ level, who did previously take his team pretty far in the playoffs, now it seems like I think I count 2 people that they've replaced, Horrid Hippo and Man's Demand for Kuroko and Freaky. Haven't looked at the game logs to know for sure if Maud played, but maybe they figured out how to work around Maud's schedule or everybody else's weird schedule and finally figured it out. Either way, this is big.
Yeah, definitely.
Have for this though is what is this? Do we think this is enough time for Valiant to for a wild card spot?
I don't know if you can answer this question, but which conference or division are they coming from? Valiant?
They're in Elite Conference Polar Division.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, I mean, I could see it coming off if they could just win nothing but all their games from now on, and if
They would have to, yeah.
If they could pull that off, then it's going to be a tough ride. One mistake is going to be really bad for that team right now, and they just got to pretty much play the perfect thin line right now.
You can look at their recent run of form. I think I have it here. They won not only the Vitality, but also the Fatal Strikers. They took another forfeit loss to Illusion. Game against Dragon Acid, who we'll get to them as well later. But I mean, that's 2 games won in 1 week. 1 game outstanding. If they can win that one, that would be big signs for them coming in here. And I think personally, if they don't come back and win, at least when the season wraps around back to them playing their own division again, they will at least be able to make things a lot more interesting in the Polar Division and give other players a run for their money.
Yeah, it's definitely a team to watch right now.
But to be fair, it would be really difficult for them to get. It would be really difficult for them to get a wild card spot. Not just would they have to win pretty much all their remaining games, but they would have to rely on Gravity, Aerial Aces, or Paradox dropping several series, which they probably wouldn't be expected to do.
That's very true. That's very true. And then the last match that we actually had on stream here, Alpha over Frosty, 2-0.
I would have to say that was expected. I mean, Frosty, was it Frosty who lost? No, Merc came from Insurgency, didn't he, or Frosty?
Frosty.
Okay, yeah, they lost Merc, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so yeah, it was expected. Alpha is a really strong team. Solus and Flitch just blowing up the offense, and Dejan's just always back ready for defense. It's kind of impossible to play around, impossible to read any balls in that game, and that's pretty much all I have to say about that one.
Sure. Arco, anything to add?
Yeah, I think I would have said the same thing. Alpha is just really good. They've been playing really well recently, and Solus and Flitz are just absolutely nuts. I don't know how they're so good.
It's great to watch them, though, I can tell you that.
Yeah.
So we can move forward into the standings, I suppose.
Yeah, I got them pulled up right now. So, looks like we got the Polar Division first. Eden, very strong team coming out of Polar Division. I'm looking forward to see them run into the playoffs, see if they could pull it off in the end. Anyone else got anything to say on Eden? Because I love that team.
Yeah, similar sentiments from me. I think that they're the team that stands out in the Polar Division, despite only needing 10 wins to stay on top of their division. I mean, I still think everybody watches them and thinks that they can go the distance. So just got to make sure that they stay above Wildcats, and even if they don't, they place spot, and it seems like they're establishing a safe distance between themselves and Paradox for that wild card issue.
Yeah, and I think even as long as they finish in the top 2 of the Polar Division, they're safe for a playoff spot, and I think they'll be able to do that, especially as the season goes back to playing their own division. I think they're pretty much dominating their own division teams right now, so I would look to them being in a playoff spot.
Sure, yeah.
And then.
And on that note,
Oh, go ahead.
but so I was going to say there seems to be alluded to it before, but the wild card situation that's happening right now, very difficult for Polar's side of things. Good for Rocket, but it seems like both of the wild card spots are going to be held in the Rocket division at this rate. For those who don't know, the wild card spot is a floating position for the playoffs that can be earned in either division of the conference. And with these records, no less than 12 losses for those top 4 teams in the Rocket division, and still all of them beating everybody in the Polar division in terms of record. It just seems like it's going to be stuck there. Paradox is really in a troublesome battle. Strange losses, I think, to Dragon Asset Gaming. Definitely don't help them out, and I think that some issue. I don't know if they can force the issue later in the season. It might be that they're just too far behind. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah.
One thing to note. Oh, you can go ahead.
Yeah, the battle between Paradox and Wildcats is going to be interesting. Either team is going to have playoff potential. I'm going to push towards more Wildcats making it this season just because they seemed better on the field, more aware. And Paradox is just lacking, playing some minors, which is questionable, but it was at their own risk. They couldn't do anything about that. It was all on them, and that's something to really look forward to see who from Polar Vision is going to come out with Eden, and I'm going to guarantee you Eden's coming out.
Yeah, I'm going to agree. Eden's probably going to finish top of the Elite Conference, or the Polar Division. I think Paradox will be able to make it through, though. I think they'll be able to take down Wildcats. They have been playing with subs a lot, and because of that, probably, they've lost their last 4 games. And I think once they get their scheduling back together and they can play with their full roster, they'll be able to win some more games, be able to overtake Wildcats again.
Yep, and that's definitely something we touched on in previously talking about this. Due to time issues, we may not want to debate this fully, but just some is how relevant it is for teams to play their minors because they're forced to, but then also have issues with the rankings that we put them at. I mean, issue whenever we see big teams or teams that should be doing better losing because they play with minors. The debate of, is that your own fault? Is it a fault of something else? Should we analyze you as if you're going to keep playing with your minors? Maybe not, maybe so. Enough time. Go ahead, absolutely. If you wanna. Let's get into it.
I mean, I don't know. In some cases, like in Alpha's case, Dijon has been playing a lot, even though he's technically a minor sub. So, I mean, I think in cases like that, it's safe to judge them based on how well their minor's doing, just because he's playing a lot. But in Paradox's case, I think it was just like a anomaly. I don't think it's that much of a I don't think it's going to keep happening. So, in that case, it should probably be. You should look towards them playing with their full roster and playing a little bit better, probably because of it.
Yeah, makes sense. And I feel like people look at the power rankings not to rank themselves, but for the good feeling they get when hoping that other people look at them and take them seriously by their ranking. People always say rankings don't matter. But it does annoy people when they get ranked lower. They know themselves. They know their majors when they're fully playing can do better. It just, maybe power rankings should be a reflection of how we think teams are going to do when they're playing their best.
Yeah.
I don't think we'll ever stop seeing people talk about that.
So,
yeah.
I don't think there's really much to say about the Rocket division that we haven't already went over. I don't know if you guys want to add anything over in the Rocket division.
Oh, good. Again, look at that. Just the drop off as soon as you get to Gravity goes down to Evolution, and you've got 9 games difference between them, 9 winnings difference between them. It's just insane.
Yeah.
All right,
And
so
I guess we can move forward.
we'll go ahead and hop into the Pro Conference. And very interesting conference, a little bit more opportunity over here versus the Rocket division when it
Yeah.
comes to the Wildcat spots, or not Wildcat, wild card.
I want to say Wildcats too. It sounds so natural.
Well, I'm looking at their
Yeah.
logo. We were just looking at them, talking about them. It's just natural.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So Titanium division. Actually, one older team, still quite a new roster, and then one brand new team, Illusion, Vitality, and Illusion facing off as taking the 1 and 2 spot quite comfortably at this point.
One thing
We're-
I want to add real quick
Yeah.
into that: games are still being played today because of Memorial Day weekend and all that. So, Nick confirmed in chat that they are 14-2 now. So we have a tie here for first place.
Okay.
Oh, no.
Well, there we go.
And
Is
Nick,
that also-
Nick is from Illusion, and they're tied with Vitality, just to clarify.
Has Nick Tough? How do you say? Is it Teuf?
2 for
Sorry?
tough. I'm not sure. I think you can say whatever, and he doesn't really mind.
Just we usually type it, so it doesn't matter. And then also Feral Ninja. They're, I guess from last season, had to come aboard Illustrious, try to do his best there. But I mean, he's a thoroughly excellent player and has really helped Illusion out with a lot of their victories. I'm sure, as they have taken big ones over, I think Galaxy, Frosty. And now they're working their way through division. They have an excellent roster as well.
Yeah.
Either way, that 14-2 now definitely spaces them out from Origin, Dragon Acid, the teams that are beneath them, vying for that wild card spot. Any thoughts on specifically who wins for Vitality versus Illusion?
Um,
You can go ahead, Marco.
Oh, I don't know who's won when they played before, but I would say
They did win before it was Vitality.
okay, yeah, I was gonna say Vitality's probably gonna be able to take it, just because they have been on fire like the whole season. The one stipulation I would say for that is the Valiant series. I don't know if that was an anomaly. I don't know if Vitality's starting to cool down or anything, but I'd still say Vitality's been really strong recently, and I wouldn't count them out.
Definitely. Keep a close eye on them, absolutely. I think we'll have a highlight of some of their, or at least one of their upcoming games. But as they eventually will, again, go into the Rocket division, all of those 4 huge teams that are just scary for other people to go against, that'll be, I think, the biggest mark of just how high they can fly.
Yeah, I'm really excited when Titanium crosses with Rocket. These are going to be some really hot games coming out from there. And it's really going to prove, it's really going to, I think it's going to show like Origin, Dragon Acid, and Frosty why there's 2 wild cards stuck in one division over there.
Definitely, yeah. And on that wild card spot for the Pro Division, do we have any thoughts over this, not a 3-way tie necessarily, but this battle between Origin, Dragon Acid, Frosty, and kind of Storm distance there?
I mean,
Who do we think is going to come out?
if you're going to put Storm into there, we got to throw in Fatal Strikers.
Yeah.
They're right there too. The way it looks, I would have to say Frosty definitely should pull a spot. I'm rooting for Frosty to pull a spot, and I love Dragon and all, but I don't think Storm's gonna make it. I would have to put it in Dragon Acid. They are lower than Origin, but I feel like they're really slept on at the moment.
Yeah, Dragon Acid has actually been recently doing a lot of good against who are the 2 teams they beat recently? Well, this past week they beat Paradox, which is big for them,
Yeah.
huge for them. Actually beat Insurgency as well. They're doing differently. I don't think they've had any recent roster changes, or have they? Let me check.
And also,
I can't actually tell you.
I mean, it's important to note that Origin is 9-7, and like Frosty, although they don't have as many wins as the other two teams, they also don't have as many losses because they haven't played all their games yet. So it may seem like they're not like at the top or not where they should be, but that's kind of just it's just because they haven't played all their games.
Yeah, there's games missing definitely from Frosty.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it'll be interesting to see. This is definitely the division you want to look out for if you want to see upsets, if you want to see people battling for those spots that are going to be really close and they're not going to know until the end of the season.
Yeah.
Okay. And then just to make sure we touch on the Boost division, because we talked about the wildcard spots, but we didn't really talk about Galaxy and Insurgency. Galaxy's now on top. The team of 2 grand champs and the Prime Time, who kind of was taken for the free agency, I think, by Jared. And then Jared used some, I guess, sneaky tricks to kind of get his 2 grand champs off of the draft right there. Beginning, but now they've lost Deluxe. And I think we have a few things we can talk about that. What's up about Gravity versus Galaxy?
Yeah. My bad. I wasn't sure. But Galaxy coming out with a win over Gravity on Sunday. A little bit of upset for Gravity, but it's not going to set them back too far. And it's going to push Galaxy above Insurgency, who just took a beating through the Rocket division. And Galaxy did take a beating, but they got a better end of the stick than Insurgency did.
Another thing to note, on top of beating Gravity, for Galaxy's sake, they also came out with a rough there with a forfeit against Aerial Aces. I honestly, there's a big situation going on with Aerial Aces. Their loss of Will has been big for the league, and I think in the confusion of the scheduling confusion with him losing, Aerial Aces just couldn't make the match happen against Galaxy. Aerial Aces has gotten a replacement, Delirious, I think.
Yeah, I haven't seen him play. I'll get to check him out towards the end of the season when Rocket goes back into Rocket division.
And it was a pretty close MMR trade-off. I think he's 1480 listed on the player sheet. So I don't know. I mean, for those of you who are expecting Aerial Aces to drop, expectations until you actually see how Delirious plays, because he could also be a very good player as well. Yeah, I think that just about does it for the Pro division.
Yeah, we'll go ahead and move into the Major League stats, which for some reason I cannot see very well. I don't know if you guys can see that.
I just had it pulled up here.
For goals per game, we got Gatman leading at 1.65. Butters RL right behind him at 1.5, and tying him is Demonifying. Or Demonifying. My bad. You got anything to say about these guys or anything?
So Gatman has been widely regarded as a goal scorer throughout the entirety of the Aerial Aces playing. The link up between him and Will has been, consistent and applauded. And now that they've replaced Motion with Torman, who many would agree is an equal, if not better, trade-off. No offense to Motion. Seems to be that when they were operating with Will, everything was working towards Gatman just putting that ball in, Will passing it to him, Torman taking everything else all around it. Honestly, why we see his goals per game so high. We'll see how he now balances with Delirious. But Arco, you go ahead.
I think one thing to note is just below those top 3 are Flitz and Solus, who are both on Alpha. I mean, I've gotten to spectate a few of their games, and they are the team, the duo to watch. They keep passing to each other. They can always somehow find each other. I don't know how they do it.
Matching each other on goals per game. They're tied at 1.32, which is interesting. So that means there's an average of 2.6 goals being scored by Alpha. every game.
Definitely. And the other thing is we don't know where the other players on these, like the top 3 players teams are in this, but we do know where 2 of Alpha's team players are, and they're both in the top 5. They're scoring goals like crazy.
And the other 2 aren't far behind. Alpha has a team goals per game of 3.95, so which is insanely high. So the other 2 probably are pretty close to Flitz and Solus.
Agree. All right, now for assists, I guess we see. I guess this is just assists. It's not quite assists. Oh, sorry, I'm not looking at the right thing.
But I do have to throw into the Flitz and Solus situation is all season they've played with Dejan. Dejan is a minor, therefore his stats from games are not being reflected into the team stats. So it is just nothing but Flitz and Solus' stats polling Alpha right now in the stat sheets.
I never thought of that at all. Alpha stats, every single one you see is only between 2 players and not even between 3 or even 4 for those that swap players.
Yeah.
All right. So assists per game. 5 players. Amp at 1.06. Poseidon at 1. Or a 3-way tie. Poseidon, Butters, Torman all at 1 assist per game. And Alsock at 0.89, who is on Eden.
The only thing I gotta say here is this pretty much shows you who's the most defensive players right now. I would have to throw in, I think Dejan would be up in assist or saves if his stats were recorded.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, there's just a fountain of assists to be gotten from whatever's going on there on Alpha. So, where he would be. But we did know that, these top 3 players, Butters play on?
I'm not sure. I don't think I've seen him, which is interesting. And I've never
Chance
talked
for him to know.
I've never talked to him, so he's a sleeper for sure.
Let me check here. He's on Frosty. Oh, he's the new player to take over for Merc.
Oh, okay.
That makes sense.
It makes sense. That makes more sense. So
I've never heard of him in my life. That's funny. Okay, and even in the we watched with Alpha and Frosty, it was Poseidon, Pugsy, and Hazmat. So, but maybe it's because he was absent. But still, so that means he's got relatively new stats that are coming in here. We don't know necessarily how he will level out. He might be still just settling in with assists per game, but still at 3rd place for assists, which is technically tied for 2nd. That's still very good for him. Yeah. And everybody's very close to each other. There is a little bit of drop off as soon as you get to Alsock. Players, assists are less frequent overall than goals and saves. Some team play going on here in those teams that are.
Yeah, so moving into saves per games, which this is pretty interesting, is you have Linko leading at saves per game. But he is also on one of the lower teams of the Rocket division. So is that a coincidence? He's on Evolution.
I think saves per game isn't necessarily a good stat to have. It does mean that you're getting a lot of pressure on your net if you have to make a lot of saves. So I think leading the saves per game isn't necessarily a good thing.
Showing up there that I honestly didn't expect to see at this point. Mod. Saves per game. We were previously talking about how much he's involved. Clearly, if he actually, because the threshold for the stats boards is you have to play like 3 series, or like you have to have a certain level of games in order to actually be registered on the league leaders. So he's showing up in stats there, even if it is again for that column. That doesn't bode well for the teams that are lower down there. Solus, we want to talk about him at 1.74.
Yeah, Solus just coming across the board. Same with Butters and Gatman doing a few little over there. So you know who the big guys are just by looking at this.
Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see Solus in the top saves per game. Because what I've seen from him, he's a pretty offensive player.
Yeah, I have seen. I mean, in seeing them play, I've noticed that the link up is there, but obviously with Dijon playing, there are some things that are still just lacking compared to the grand champ ability of Solus and Flitz. And I think that might register just in that the ball tends to not get total control of the game. Sometimes other teams that they play against will still be able to put pressure on their net. So I think Solus or somebody on the team getting in the saves leaderboard is somewhat reasonable.
Okay.
All right. Do you want to move? Do you want to go into points per game, or do you just want to move on to upcoming games? Because we're already...
people can see it. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah.
All these players are kind of talking about.
So I'm gonna run through these fairly quickly. I mean, there's not much to talk about. I don't know if you guys want to go through them. But the first one coming up is going to be Alpha versus Vitality. I think, Alpha versus Vitality. I think Alpha is just going to blow them out. This is going to be an interesting game, but I think Solus and Flitz are more, what's the word I'm looking for? Not trained, but somewhere in that sense to have the willpower to beat them.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah,
Marco?
I can agree with that too. Alpha has been playing out of their mind recently. I can't see them losing.
Okay, and then another...
This is a Thursday matchup as well, just putting that note out there.
Yeah, another great matchup. We're going to have Aerial Aces versus Insurgency. You guys want to say?
I put this one in there for my value as just a good metric of how Aerial Aces will be playing without Will. And I mean, I guess no better way to put them up against one of the top teams in the other division. More so for Aerial Ace's sake of just seeing how they play. I think this will be a thorough, awesome match.
Definitely, to see if they're coping with the loss of Will and how well the new player is coping in with the team.
Yeah, for sure.
The next match we're moving on to is Dragon Acid versus Wildcats. Both teams fighting for playoff spots at this moment, so this is going to be a high-pressure game. Neither of these teams can afford a loss at the moment.
Definitely, and with Dragon Acid's new form, winning against Paradox, this will be another indication of if they can keep this up. I think if there's anything that we can gather, it's that we've debated who Wildcats versus Paradox, who comes out on top. This is kind of more roundabout way of seeing that. If Wildcats is better, they might just beat Dragon Acid, but who knows? This might be a very interesting result.
Yeah, and this affects wildcard battles on pretty much the whole league. Obviously, Paradox is still fighting for a wildcard spot, and they'll be wanting Wildcats to lose. But at the same time, Dragon Acid Gaming is desperately trying to cling on to their wildcard spot. So it really just affects the whole league.
All right.
Of potential for the result.
Yeah, moving on to Eden versus Origin. My outcome for this one is Eden is going to come out 2-0 and just add another one to their belt.
On the alternative side of that, Origin did recently beat Paradox as well. I mean, Origin has kind of been not exactly floundering, but there's been a lot of potential for them, especially in the game I watched against them versus Insurgency. They've had a lot of close matches against top teams, but still just can't get the good win that nobody else is getting. But yeah, I'd agree with that Eaton is at least going to come out with the win here.
Mm-hmm. I would, add to the same thing. Eden's been playing pretty well recently, and Origin, although they've gotten some wins, I can't really see them taking this one over Eden.
Yeah, definitely. And the final major game of the day, or the last one to look out for, is Paradox versus Frosty. I don't know much about these teams, so I'm going to let these guys take this one over.
I think this is just in the same vein as Dragon Acid versus Wildcats. Whoever wins here wins big. for their wild card race. The difference here is Paradox is behind; they're trying to catch up, and Frosty is much more of an opportunity to get that wild card spot in the division. Losing to Paradox really won't like hurt them as much as Frosty, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And Paradox, I think, like they've been playing pretty well recently. Of course, this past week they've just been playing awfully. Obviously, they've had to call in a minor or 2 minors, and so it's kind of hard to tell where they are at, like skill wise. And I think if they can win this one, they'll definitely get back in contention for the wild card spot.
Right. All right.
All right, that should push us into the interview with our very special guest, Gingly Moyd.
What's up?
What's up, Gingly?
Sorry to keep you waiting.
I'm
So-
doing good. Just here to talk.
We'll get into, I guess, first introduce yourself, and I guess we could run through some basic questions, but like, who you play for, how long have you been playing Rocket League?
Play for Insurgency, Grand Champ in 2s and 3s. That's pretty much it.
Cool. All right, well, we'll go into some questions here. Start with Arco.
All right, so the first question I had is Insurgency is one of the top teams. They're 11-5, and there's probably a lot of pressure on you to keep that top spot or keep the automatic playoff spot. How do you handle the pressure?
Well, I mean, it's just like communication. You gotta constantly keep like an open line with your teammates and make sure that you understand what's going on in their heads, really. And so long as you do that, you guys don't get mad at each other. When it's game time, I think everything's fine, really.
Mm-hmm. And we've seen that a lot with other teams that just can't handle the pressure and kind of fall apart. My next question for you is, having been through most of the divisions, I think you're going through Rocket Division right now. Which one, if you had to pick one, which one is the most difficult that you've played so far?
Rocket Division, because that's the one with Alpha, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, all the top 4 teams are really good. We haven't played Aerial Aces yet, but I'm sure even without Will, they're a great team because Gatman's a beast. But yeah, definitely Rocket Division there. I think one problem though was during that week, I think our team kind of had like a slump. It just happens sometimes where not everybody's clicking. But no offense to the teams in that conference because they're all insane, or division.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and Baker, you got some questions?
Yeah, my questions. My first question is gonna be with this season being under Edgy. How are you liking it so far?
Oh, Edgy's a great guy. Yeah, he's a great GM. Like if we ever have a good game, he's always there to encourage us, and if we have a bad game, he's always there to help us, turn it around. Yeah, he's really cool.
Yeah, that's always nice
Good
to
for
hear. GMs being there for you, rooting you guys on. My second question, or I guess statement, would be, how would you compare the season with H2O to Insurgency?
Oof.
And which do you prefer? I mean, no shots fired at either teams. I'm just interested because last season was very different compared to this season.
Yeah. Well, I guess last time, I think our GM was overseas, so we didn't really get a chance to talk to him too much because of the time zones. And me and Freeze were both on H2O. The only difference was Tor. I mean, I liked H2O and I like Insurgency. Honestly, I have no complaints with either. Both have been really great teams to be on so far with great guys.
Yeah.
In all honesty, I mean, I don't have any shot. Like, if I had shots to fire, I would fire them, but I really don't.
Yeah. One last little question. Do you prefer, like last season, there was only 2 or 3 teams that were dominant. Now this season, you have, I would say, 5 or
there's so
6
many.
teams that are dominant. Do you
Yeah.
like the more level of competition rather than just running through
Oh, yeah.
every team? Yeah, that's
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. I don't like getting smashed by Alpha, but
I agree.
it's a great learning experience if you're trying to get better and just get clapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's great. It's good to see the league evolve and have this depth of talent. It's a lot of great people.
Yeah.
It's good to see.
I'm gonna pass it off to Squill. Do you have any questions for the man?
I can't come up with any questions that haven't already been asked. I apologize. I'm so sorry. But I mean, I do want to say thank you very much for joining us. We really appreciate hearing from you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
oh, it was great being on here.
You well.
All right. You have a good night, Gingley. We're gonna hop into the minor section.